Hi everyone, Eric here, coming to you from my happy place, aka my garage workshop. And in this video, we attempt to answer the question, can you recreate the iconic face melt effect from Raiders of the Lost Ark in just 1 week? And also make it look good, because of course you could do it in a week. I could do it in a day. It would just look bad. This project started when Corridor Digital asked me to help them with their face melt video, so this is kind of a companion piece where I'm gonna go into more detail on how we created the practical version of the effect versus the really cool CGI version that Corridor created that I had absolutely nothing to do with. It's really cool. Link in the description. Now this will actually be my second attempt at this effect. I created an ultra low budget version about 16 years ago on a channel called Indie Mogul. And while that version looks pretty cool considering I was using melted crayons and Play-Doh, this time I want to get as close to the original as possible, meaning I want it to look like an actual person instead of this. Okay, so what do we need to pull this effect off? Well, super broad strokes. We need an actor, a realistic copy of that actor with special melty skin, and inside of that, a skeleton core that will be revealed as the skin melts. Let's start with the melty skin. Now in the original film, a lot of people think they used wax, but actually the key ingredient was gelatin. The more important question is, how do you make what's essentially Jell-O look like a screaming Nazi? Well, back then, they would have done something like this. Life cast the actor to make a mold or negative copy. Now this process usually involves them being covered in warm goo, so they do it with their eyes and mouth closed. Next, use that mold to make a clay copy of the actor, then give that to a talented sculptor who can resculpt the eyes and mouth open, then make another mold of that. This will become the final mold. Then grab some more clay and sculpt the skeleton core. Then you have to make a mold of that because remember, clay melts and we need our skeleton to not melt. So you pour heat resistant plaster into that skeleton mold so that you get a heat resistant copy. And finally, take your skeleton core, put it in your mold and fill the empty space with your melty skin. Now that traditional process that I just glossed over would take at least 10 days and a small team of highly trained artists. But we only have 1 week, so here's what we're gonna do instead. Step 1, instead of molding our actor, we're going to 3D scan them. This is a lot less messy, but more importantly, allows us to capture them in that screaming position right off the bat. Lucky for us, Corridor was already getting Ren 3D scanned for their CGI version of the effect, but if we had to do it ourselves, or if you wanted to do it, fear not, I plan on covering that in an upcoming video. Step 2, bring that scan into a 3D sculpting program like ZBrush or Blender, which is free, and use it to create your negative copy or digital mold. Step 3, use that same program to digitally sculpt your skeleton core. Step 4, use the 3D printers that I already have to just print the molds and the core. This will definitely take a while depending on how much detail we want, but the beauty of 3D printing is you can be doing other things while your robots do your bidding. And the last step is pretty much the same as the traditional process. We take our 3D printed core, put it in our 3D printed mold, and fill it with melty skin. This new plan should cut our build time in half, but I'm still gonna need some help, especially in the digital sculpting department, because I'm bad at that. So I called my buddy Gordon Tarpley, who is an amazing designer, digital sculptor, fabricator, about 20 other things. He's very talented. All we need now is a copy of Ren's digital scan, and we should be golden. So I just got off the phone with Matt over at Corridor, and turns out the 3D scans of Ren need to be processed and won't be ready for 4 or 5 days. I don't know what we're gonna do. Why are the scans gonna take so long? Well, Corridor got them done at a company called Otoy, which is a premier 3D rendering, 3D scanning company. So I'm sure their scans are insanely detailed. Makes total sense why it would take some time to process them. The hilarious part is that all that insane detail is gonna be completely wasted on us and what we need it for on the practical side of things, because we're gonna be printing our final molds on consumer grade printers, which won't be able to reproduce a fraction of the detail in these scans. So it's a real pearls before swine situation here, and at this point, I didn't know what we were gonna do. So I called Gordon to break him the news, and Turns out he's worked with Otoy before. They scanned him for this awesome Star Trek project that he was in, and he's familiar with their workflow. But most importantly, he says that there's probably a raw version of Ren's scan that's ready right now. Yes! Unfortunately, we figured this out on Saturday morning. Damn it! So while we waited till Monday to hear back from Otoy, I tried to make the best of things by coming up with some tests. Okay, so today I want to design and print some mini molds. These will allow us to do some tests and hopefully avoid us screwing up the full-size version because we're only going to have time to make and melt one of those. Hopefully. These mini molds will essentially be smaller versions of what Gordon's gonna make, but they're not only gonna be smaller, they're also gonna be crappier because I'm not just bad at digital sculpting, I've actually never done it. But fear not, I just installed Blender on my computer, I got this cheap drawing tablet on Amazon, and I've got YouTube. You can teach yourself anything on YouTube. How hard could this be? Okay, so this is how it's going. This is what the example face is supposed to look like, and this is what mine looks like. So I can digitally sculpt now. I'm terrible at it, but I can do it. Using my newfound Blender skills, I took a low-res scan of Ren's head, made him bald, and created this simple box mold. For the skeleton core, I found this skull model online and then tweaked and resized it to fit Ren's head. But after 3D printing my first set, I immediately found a problem. Okay, it's Sunday now, and I just realized my super cool skull core thing that I spent way too much time designing is gonna be useless for our tests because the skin is gonna be way too thin. When I was designing this in the computer, I was looking at reference images, trying to replicate how a real skull fits in a real head. But what I didn't think about was how thin your skin is on a real skull in a lot of places. If you think, touch your forehead or your chin, there's not a lot of meat between the outside world and your skull. And then when you scale that down, which we're of course doing, it just becomes way too thin. And since the whole point of these tests is to see how the gelatin is gonna melt and react, that's gonna be tough if the skin is paper thin. So I need to go back and redesign a much smaller skull that will leave more empty space, AKA skin thickness, because we want that skin thickness on the mini mold to be about the same as it's gonna be on the full-size version. So I'm gonna go back to the computer. Okay, this is what I came up with. It looks like a robot because I used Fusion 360 to design it because that's a program I actually know how to use. And Fusion doesn't really love organic shapes so much, but it should be fine for the purpose of our tests. And frankly, we're running out of time. By Monday afternoon, we were able to get the raw scans from Otoy, and as expected, they were insanely detailed. One slight hiccup was that the raw scans were just of Ren's face, but luckily since Gordon had worked with them, he had his own scans, and he was able to mad Frankenstein Ren's face onto his head and shoulders. For our digital skeleton core, Gordon was able to save a lot of time by starting with a stock skull model, but it still took a lot of tweaking and resizing to fit Ren's head perfectly. He then built out the neck and was even able to integrate Ren's actual top teeth from the scan into the skeleton core. Finally, Gordon created our digital mold or negative copy of Ren's screaming head. And remember, because we can just 3D print the final molds, the digital Ren head only ever has to exist in the computer. While it will never enter the physical world, it will forever haunt my dreams. All that was left at this point was to 3D print everything, but we'll circle back to that later because there were some issues. Okay, so I'm headed to Corridor Digital. We're gonna do our mini mold tests today. And in my mind, there's three main questions I wanna get answers to. One, figure out the best gelatin recipes. Two, make sure that our gelatin's not gonna react weird to the 3D printed molds. And three, make sure our 3D printed skeleton is not gonna melt. Because even though I think a skull melting would look cool, it wouldn't make sense. Once I got to Corridor, Matt and I started experimenting with different gelatin recipes. After screwing up a few batches and utterly destroying their kitchen, we came up with 2 recipes we really liked. The first one we called OG Gelatin, and this was the classic mix of gelatin, glycerin, and water. The second one we called Tough Gelatin, and it tweaked the original ingredients and then added sorbitol, a sugar alcohol, gross, and Prozaid, a liquid adhesive commonly used in the effects world. To cook your gelatin, you basically take a microwave-safe container, measure and mix the proper amounts of your ingredients, and then throw it all in the microwave for about 2 to 6 minutes depending on the size of your batch. But make sure and stop it every 15 seconds or so to stir it and make sure it's not boiling. Heat? Good. Boiling, bad. Your gelatin will be done once most of the little grainy bits have dissolved and your microwave starts smelling like wet hot horse hooves. Using our new gelatin recipes, we ended up making and melting 3 test heads and crossing off all the things on my list. Gelatin and 3D printed molds, total besties. 3D printed cores, impervious to heat. Our tests also brought up a few things I was not expecting, which is kind of why you do tests. First off, the outer flesh tone layer was way too thick. You really want to start seeing the red, gory bits much sooner. Second, we're gonna need a lot more heat. The electric heat guns we were using were barely enough for our mini heads, so we're gonna need a lot more firepower for our full-size one. But that's gonna be future Eric's problem because it's time to get back to our 3D prints. Okay, so today is our last build day and our 3D printed molds and core are not done yet. And by not done yet, I mean not even started. Originally, we planned on having 2 full days reserved for 3D printing, but then we lost some time in the beginning of the project. So now we have less than 20 hours to print 3 pretty big things. So we're gonna have to use printer settings that sacrifice quality for speed because 3D printing, like most things, adheres to the classic good, cheap, fast rule. Oh, hang on, I made a visual aid. Okay, so we're using relatively cheap 3D printers, so we have a choice between good prints that are slow or fast prints that are We were hoping to be around here or even here, but we're gonna be here. If only we had these. And even with our printers set to fast mode, we're still gonna be cutting it very close. Yup. Okay, so it's 9 p.m. I'm recording this in the dark because it feels more dramatic. I just got off the phone with Gordon and the prints are going well, but his machines are gonna have to run all night if we're gonna make our deadline. But as long as nothing happens while he's asleep, we should be fine. But these are consumer grade printers being pushed to their limits, so things definitely go wrong. So we'll see. I guess sweet dreams, everybody. And we'll see where we're at in the morning. Okay, how did you sleep? Me, not so great. It's 6:59 a.m. and Gordon just sent me the following picture. We're in business. All right, looks like we're doing this. Once we all got to Corridor Studio, I was able to see the 3D printed mold and core for the first time in person, and I gotta say, they looked pretty awesome. We got the molds, we got the core, now we gotta make the melty head. I started mixing and microwaving several batches of gelatin, and again, made a big mess. Sorry, Corridor. Meanwhile, Gordon did some cleanup on the 3D printed core, then gave it a basic paint job with some cheap acrylic paints. After everything we learned from the mini tests, we wanted to apply our gelatin in 3 layers. A flesh tone skin layer applied to the inside of the mold, a dark red muscle layer built up around the core, and a pink fat layer that will be poured in after the mold is closed. The idea is that this last layer will fill in all the gaps and bond everything together. And guess what? Everything went according to plan. The end. First off, our outer skin layer was probably still too thick. And while our muscle layer looked awesome in a disgusting kind of way, it was also too thick, so when we tried to close our mold, it wouldn't. We did find that soaking strips of toilet paper in the warm gelatin created awesome fleshy chunks, so that was cool, but again, too thick. We ended up removing some of the gelatin from the core and forcing it shut, but should have removed more. Because when we started pouring our final fat layer, a lot of it started just leaking out of the sides. All we could really do was just keep pouring and hope enough of it was getting to the front of the mold to bond everything together. Then we just put everything in the fridge, crossed our fingers, and waited to see what we'd get the next day.
This was the moment of truth. If this head doesn't come out of the mold, we're gonna be
beyond screwed.
About to find out the hard way if this worked or not.
Yeah. So we're doing this? Okay.
Let's do it.
Let's freaking go for it.
Soccer.
Okay, here we go. This is the moment of truth.
Oh, wait. Oh, we're losing the core. Oh, wait. Oh, no, it's good. It's good.
Oh, it's coming.
Wow. Wait. Give it a little powder.
Yeah. Does that look good up there?
Right. That's good.
It does look good.
Sorry, that's slippery. Let's see if we can get it. Yeah, look at that. I think it's good. I think it's good. Look at this somewhere. You got it?
Yep.
Okay. I'm going. Yeah.
It's coming. It's coming. Gentle.
There it goes.
Oh.
Power back.
Firm.
Yep.
Firm but gentle.
Firm but gentle.
But gentle.
Yeah. Look at this guy.
Yay! Our Wren head came out of the Wren mold and looked a lot like Wren. To get our guest of honor ready to melt, we trimmed away the extra gelatin, patched up some ugly spots, and finally added some sideburns using hair from an old hairdresser's wig. As far as how we're gonna melt this thing, well, we ended up picking up 2 of these blowtorch looking things from Home Depot. Matt and I tested them out on a spare hunk of gelatin and were both immediately shocked by the sound and heat output.
Let's go for it.
This is a lot of heat.
If anything, now we were worried it was gonna be too much heat. Like, is the shirt gonna catch on fire? Will we set off their fire sprinklers and destroy all their crazy expensive computers? Will we all die? After a long, thoughtful conversation, we came to the consensus of, I don't know. And then it was finally time. All of our work was about to be put to the test. Will it look super awesome or super lame or somewhere in between? Probably that one. Either way, we were only gonna get one shot at it because with practical effects, there's no undo button.
Rolling.
Back up, Mark, back up.
Oh my God.
We did it! And the fire sprinklers didn't go off, destroying all of Corridor's computers and therefore their livelihood. I was really nervous about that. Were there some things that I would have liked to do different? Of course. Here's a list. But there were also lots of amazing happy accidents that you really only get with practical effects. I mean, come on, all those meaty, muscly bits sizzling and falling off. Mwah. So good. So gross. Also, somehow none of us thought the helmet was gonna melt. I have no idea why. At the beginning of this video, I asked a question. Can we recreate this awesome face melt effect in just 1 week? And also make it look good? And I think the answer was yeah. But the only way we were able to pull this off is by taking all the cool things we learned about how this was done in the past and combining it with all the awesome technology we have access to today, which is kind of what I want this YouTube channel to be all about. So if you're like me and you love practical special effects, please consider subscribing, liking, hitting the bell notification thing, and maybe even checking out my Patreon. Huge thank you to Gordon for all your amazing help and skills, and of course, thank you to Corridor Digital. There is nobody I'd rather melt faces with. And finally, thank all of you. I am so excited to be making videos again, sharing all the new skills I've learned. If you stuck with me to the end, please leave a comment down below and let me know what classic practical effects I should attack next. See you next time.